Good day, Junior Techies. Today we're going to look at two writing pieces that you will be able to use not only in your writing pieces, but in your actual life when you apply for a job, internship, or any application for bursaries. This is also a really nice transactional piece to answer in your exam. I'm Mrs. Kruger and I'm here to help you through this. Right now, the cover letter or letters which are sent with your CV application. And remember, your CV is a document which lists the personal details of you and what you've achieved and who you are. Now, remember to submit your CV with the application for your job. Now, in modern times, we very often have to email our application, or even apply online. That does not mean that you leave out your cover letter or your CV. In actual fact, if you do add them, it actually makes you look as if you know what you're doing. So remember, even if they haven't asked for it, please attach it. Now, when it comes to the writing part, especially for paper 3 or any of your writing pieces, remember that we have 180 words and 150 words for the different levels of English. And the only rule we actually have is don't write under the word count. You can go slightly over, but also try to not be repetitive in your writing and waste word count. We're looking for good quality content that is rich and well written types of pieces. Always read the instructions as your guide. Your CV, as well as your covering letter, will seem easy, but sometimes we do throw in a word there to trick you. Remember to plan all your transactional pieces, no matter how easy it is, and no matter how well you know it, you have to plan. And now I don't mean write out a draft, it must be a really detailed mind map or something close to that. Right, so let's jump in. Right, this CV briefly shows the potential employer important information about you and why you are suitable for the job. The information includes details about education, possible qualifications, and remember you've made it to here. That gives you a educational background as well as some qualifications. And sometimes people in school already start working, so you can mention previous work experience. Now, don't throw out anything that you've done, whether it's community service, whether it's being a prefect on the prefect body. All of that counts to work experience. You've worked in their field, you've managed a few kids or helped a teacher, you've done something at school. Put it on your CV. Remember that your tone must be factual, it must be direct, and you must use formal register. No loosey-goosey, no airy-fairy type of language. A CV format for matriculants would consist of the following CV sections, right? So we have to have the heading, CV, and remember you have to write it out in full and you have to spell it correctly. Remember your name and surname, your current address. Now remember, you can either just do your own or you can make it all up. All the names, all the addresses, it doesn't matter. It's called creative writing, right? Remember to add contact details for the CV applicant, professional profile or introduction with a personal statement. I love this part. It's very modern, and even if you don't use it in the actual CV for your exam, you can use it in real life. Remember to add objectives. In other words, where do you see yourself going? What do you want? And then, of course, the education and the qualifications include courses, short courses, online courses, anything that is relevant. Even start going through your Udemy today. It's an application that is fantastic that offers free, most of it's free programs that you can follow, short courses, and Bob's your uncle. Remember to add the places of your schooling. This is very important because sometimes your employer phones back to see what type of person you are and do we recommend you for the job. Right, skills, it may be placed after the objectives instead of here. So just take note of that. Add personal details, interest, hobbies, And then, of course, references. Very important. We have to have references to ensure that we are able to get people to phone the people you've placed there, to hear who you really are. Remember to add anything about copies of certificate, testimonials, anything there could be used as a reference. Right, and make sure that you have covered these headings and items before you do your final writing piece. And you'll notice, here's an example. Now, unlike the other transactionals you write, you actually need headings for your CV. I can't just write a random number and expect the person viewing this to know what I'm referring to. It might be a fax number, it might be, I don't know, my model and make. So ensure that you write down what it is for. Right now, as we started already in the previous slide, let me go through this step by step. It is very important that the details mentioned on this slide are actually included, and you've used these headings to head your specific section that you're going to discuss. Try and stay and keep it in this format because your marker has a very strict guideline of what needs to be there in which order. Right, so please ensure that all of these are there. We have gone through them, so let's progress to the next part. And look at this wonderful example from the Department of Education. Note that there are specific headings that you'll have to memorize, and using your writing, of course, to ensure that you cover all the information needed to your employer. Do not leave out these headings because the reader is going to be confused. And ensure that you copy information from the left side of the document here exactly like this. Right, there's a wonderful document called Mind the Gap, and I've added the link here for you today so that you can go have a look. Remember, your CV can be slightly more modern when you handle it, but if you got no idea what to do with your CV, have a look at this. It really does help. So here are the things that you need to remember when writing your CV. Firstly, align all the headings to the left of your page. I normally tell my learners to draw a pencil guideline and then remember to erase it afterwards. Now, while we're talking about pencil, ladies, gents, please ensure that you do not cross out your work in pencil. In your final exam, that is not going to count. So why waste the pencil and why make your life more difficult than it has to be? Only use ink in your final and draw a line through that which you want to erase from your page. You cannot use Tipex and you may not edit in pencil, right? So on that note, on the right hand side of your page, so that you fill in the relevant details as and that will be guided by the headings that you've written on the left hand side. Do not abbreviate any item like the word street, for example. And we often do this in our transactional pieces for some odd reason. We want to abbreviate all the words. Please do not do that. You can also use this version of your actual CV here below, because you'll notice that it kind of has a modern feel to it. And this would be more or less what you would write because you don't necessarily have work experience yet. Right, let's look at topic examples. Now, here are two examples of the types of questions that you can expect. Ensure that you use the address provided and that you also answer the topic fully. What does that mean? It means you need to read through the topic, understand all the words, and ensure that you cover every single detail that is mentioned. Do not just extract information that suits you, because that is going to cost you content marks. Remember that the curriculum vitae is a document through which the writer presents himself or herself to the world. The document should present a strong first impression of the candidate. It should represent information clearly, objectively, and concisely. Also remember that a CV must address the post for which the candidate seeks employment. For example, a candidate who applies for sport-related sport will present a CV which speaks more about the candidate's prowess in sport than, for example, academics. The following aspects must be addressed: personal details, formal education, work experience, and references. Right, now we get to the covering letter. Remember, it's a summary of what you've written in your CV and has to be with your CV. It has to be attached. Go with your application to whatever job you've applied for. The purpose of a covering letter is to introduce the applicant and provide information on why the applicant would be the most suitable candidate for the position. You are slightly selling yourself here to ensure that you do get the bursary or the job or whatever application you have submitted. Let's have a look what this looks like. Right, here's a classic example of a covering letter. It's shorter than your normal letter of application and it only contains the summarized version of your CV. Remember, we add those two words together to get your word count, the CV and the letter. You still have to use the normal layout as for a formal letter. Have the sender's address on the right, the receiver's address on the left, and remember here to use the one that was most likely given in the topic. Remember your greeting, the topic line of the letter, and then the actual paragraphs. In your formal letter with the signature, your name written out in full, so the full signage at the bottom there for me. Right, and that's it. When you've come to the end of your letters and you've worked through your CV, you know the layout, have another look at the information that I've placed here for you. There is a document called the Grade 12 Resource Pack. Within that document, and it's divided up in paper 1, 2, and 3, there are copious amount of information that will serve you really well when you are stuck. You don't know what to do anymore. You don't know how to study. Your teacher didn't cover something, or you feel like she didn't cover something. And then you just go back to these resource packs because we work from there to create some of your papers. All right. All right, Junior Techie. I hope that helped a bit and that you're a little bit more comfortable doing your curriculum vitae as well as your covering letter. Best of luck. See you soon.